The Rock's Black Adam movie is now out in theaters, and we are going to discuss and review Black Adam. So let's just start there since we have the graphic up on screen. Oddly enough, Black Adam was not screened. There was no big screening down here in Nashville for Black Adam, which was kind of a last-minute surprise. If you guys don't know anything about the movie business, you know, you can usually tell how things are going or how a studio feels about the movie by their screening plans. Like, if they feel very confident about it, they tend to get it out early. They tend to have multiple screenings to get as much hype as possible. When they say, oh, we're not screening this before opening day, that's sometimes a reason to worry.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
In this case, I think it was something different, and, you know, it may have been even more prudent and smart to do it this way. The point is, I had to go out last night. These guys were both busy. I had to go out and see Black Adam. I think Matt might have caught up on some of the things because, you know, it's out there. So
spoilers.
Yeah, Matt does good. Even if he can't be there, he does his due diligence and research because he is one of our big DC experts. And I went out to see it. So what I'll say about Black Adam is I get their strategy with Warner Brothers because there are things, if you can't see our graphic in the background here of the studio made by Peter, who does a lot of our awesome graphics every week. There is a big discrepancy between how Black Adam is being received by critics versus how it's being received by audiences. It is. It's almost like, it's almost like a 2-to-1 difference, like about how much audiences like it versus how critics are rating it. And so I get that, and The Rock and them may have been savvy by saying, let's not go through the whole humdrum of doing this for the critics. This is not going to be for them. Let's just do it for the fans. The Rock is a fans. He's the people's champion, right? Yeah. So let's do it for the fans and just worry about what they have to say. And and it might be prudent. It might be help them get to a bigger opening weekend because there are a lot of Rock fans out there. There are a lot of comic book movie fans out there, and there are enough added people in this to kind of draw in some other people who might not come. Pierce Brosnan's like a big draw, for instance. So, yeah, Black Adam, they might have done a kind of smart thing, but what I will say personally is somebody who is a critic but also tries to keep in mind what, the fan experience is. We are Comic Book Nation after all. I said in a tweet that I would compare this to a really good 2000s comic book movie or even a good kind of like Marvel Phase 1 movie. In the sense that there are some good ideas here. It's taking itself seriously as kind of a both universe fixer and kind of universe extender. And I can talk about a little bit more about that in a minute. But the director, Jaume Collet-Serra, I believe. I always butcher his name. Yeah, Jaume Collet-Serra I think he's a very good and accomplished kind of B-movie genre director who's done, a bunch of crazy things like House of Wax, The Shallows, Orphan, those Liam Neeson movies like Unknown, Nonstop, and The Commuter, Run All Night, which is another that starred Liam Neeson. So he's done all these kind of crazy,
I can totally see all of those in this.
Right, right. So those are all kind of B movies. But he did the Jungle Cruise movie. That's where he hooked up with The Rock, and that's kind of where they decided they're going to do Black Adam together. I think this movie was a little bit beyond the scope of what, Jaume Collet-Serra can handle in terms of making a blockbuster movie. There's a lot of unevenness in it. Action scenes are cool, big, and things. But the smaller scenes a lot of them are just ridiculous. And they're not ridiculous like in a bad way. It's just little things that they probably could have done to just make it more grounded, in one case, literally. Like the decision, for instance, there's one decision that they made to have like Black Adam, always kind of hovering when he returns to this certain spot, the set that they keep going back to in Kahndaq. And he's always hovering in these conversation scenes where he's just talking to other characters. And it's just clearly The Rock on a rig kind of like floating there. And it's like, you didn't need to have this guy floating. Like, just put him on the ground, let him walk around, let him emote. Like, he can be on the ground. But in almost every scene, he's like floating above and doing all this stuff. And it's that kind of thing that you're just like, that's kind of hokey and kind of weird. Like, and it makes the scene
I get why they did
weird.
that though.
Why?
I get that because he does that a lot in the comics, and two, they're trying to get across. We were actually talking a little bit about this earlier, right? I think they were in that effect. I get why they did it. Whether it worked out execution-wise is one thing, but like I understand how you're trying to get across this person who is literally feels like he is above certain things. Why does he have to touch the ground? He doesn't have to. You do. That doesn't mean he does. So I know why they're trying to get across that feeling. Whether or not it worked is subjective, obviously. But I'm just saying, like, I get why they did that.
Oh no, I get the film
idea.
School, and you're right. That's a great insight, and it's a good film school reason. But it just means that, like, the blocking in the scene.
That means you got to do it right. You got to execute.
And how it looks as other characters are trying to walk around this rig and him and like have conversations. It just looks funny. It's just a guy kind of floating. So
is he likable? Because I feel like I'm not getting a lot of like understanding of his character.
That's the other thing. This movie takes, I think, one of the things that, and a lot of feedback you hear is people are excited to see where this franchise and this character goes from here after this. And I think they Captain Marveled themselves in a way, in the sense that they had a plot and Eternals themselves in a way. They had a plot that they made overly convoluted.
Okay.
And they tried to have these reveals that are not reveals. That's why I said a 2000s movie. Like, if you've ever seen a 2000s, like, action thriller movie and twists and stuff, like, you've seen every twist in this movie, and you see them coming from a mile away. From, like, the very first scene. You're just like, oh, that person's going to be bad. And it's like, twist, he's bad. And you're like, not really twist. There's a whole thing about Teth Adams' origin that they try to keep secret that they ruined in the marketing and the promotion, which is namely his relationship like with his son and what happened there.
Yeah.
They don't make it a secret in the marketing, but it's a major secret twist of the movie.
Yeah, I think they tried to make it a secret in in some of the marketing, and then in other parts of the marketing, which again we talked about last week. Like there was a couple of those things done with this film, right? Like the thing that we are obviously going to probably talk about at some point, but the big thing that even The Rock kind of alludes to before the movie's out, right? Like there's certain things in this movie that they kind of, I don't know if they made the full decision. Like they didn't quite commit either way of like, we're not going to talk about this or we are going to talk about it. You know, that particular thing as well. Yes, I totally get what you're saying.
Amateur Hour Noob says it would be much better seeing Black Adam as a villain and not an anti-hero.
Yeah, and I don't think they ever got a firm understanding of like who they wanted this guy to be and how they wanted him to be. And it's just The Rock looking menacing for like 2 hours. But me and Matt were discussing before this, you know, they've done a lot to overhaul Black Adam in the comics over the last few years. And I was saying he kind of gives you Namor vibes. Like, you know, he is kind of this king godly figure. Yeah. He knows it. He's arrogant, but he's witty. He's smart. He can talk and like all of this. And in this one, 10th Adam they do this fish out of water thing where the only real joys of the movie, like the laughs, are the moments where 10th Adam's trying to kind of, you know, hinge and adapt and kind of catch up to where things are.
Okay.
And like there's a whole motif about him coming up with a catchphrase throughout the whole thing, and he doesn't know when to use it or how to use it.
Which is good. And that is something that they play with in this movie, because I'm trying to walk around spoilers. But like the fact that the way they handle him of being kind of bringing him back after a long absence lends, I mean, they did build that in to this movie. That isn't like something I necessarily would have like immediately gone with or thought to the top of my head for a Black Adam movie. Yeah. But I did enjoy that. But again, they built that into the movie. It's not necessarily something that I would have just leapt to, because I agree. I do like, but I also don't like Black Adam as a pure villain. I think I find him boring when he is a pure villain. That is not, I've seen those umpteen million times. The thing over the last 2 years that the comics have really done is flesh that character out to be literally more of a hesitant hero. They've kind of Harley Quinned a little bit in that regard, and so he's always wrestling with that back and forth. That's way more interesting to me than him straight up being. So I like that they tried to kind of walk that line here.
And let me be clear. I bring up Captain Marvel in Eternals specifically because you and I, Matt, and I have kind of gone back and forth about how Captain Marvel did a plot line that essentially
I didn't touch that, by the way.
It restricted Carol Danvers' awesome personality and the kind of the fieriness because she had to be brainwashed. And so they had to kind of mute down who Carol Danvers was because she's this kind of brainwashed person trying to figure out who she is in most of that movie. Yes. And so it's only to the third act until she's taking off her shoes and, you know, drop kicking people in the face to, a No Doubt song that you begin to really get the vibe of who Carol Danvers really is as Captain Marvel.
I agree.
Eternals did the kind of same thing where they used a plot line that made them restrict who these characters really were and how they really felt and what their real passions and operations were, because they were keeping secrets and trying to fool you as to, the whole Icarus of it all and all that. And so you couldn't dig into some of the fun, deeper things that were going on with the character. I get the decisions they made for Black Adam, but I think they made too many contradictory ones. Him not knowing what's going on. There's this whole other plot line in the film that's about Kahndaq and it determining its own fate, and the people there being like, you guys are not from here, you don't, and it's a metaphor for like the Middle East and all this stuff about you don't understand what you're doing here. This is our guy, and we back him, and that stuff gets kind of muddled with the JSA and of it all and stuff. But it would have been a much more interesting thing if this guy's clear kind of attachment was, I'm here for Kahndaq, I rep for Kahndaq, I hurt anybody who needs to be hurt to protect my homeland. And there's a little bit of that, but not so much.
I agree. They could have done
a little
more.
bit of his personal stuff, but not so much.
Yeah.
And it kind of, but by the end, that all is out of the way, and there is a clear picture.
Yes.
Where, who this guy's going to be and where he stands in his kingdom. And if you've seen the leaked post-credit scene, they spell it out pretty. They literally have somebody say,
it's so weird.
These are the parameters for your character.
I'm not conflicted on this movie, but I am very much like, this is what I love about. I love origin stories in this manner. I like them when they're already into the story and then we're moving, but we're also seeing things fleshed out. I'm not cool. Like a big, I have to see you normal for half a movie or whatever before you get powers. Like, I'm not big, I don't necessarily need that. It's fine in some cases, but we've just seen that over and over again so many times that it's like, it's nice to kind of hit the ground running for an origin story movie. And I say origin story in the fact that this is the first time we're seeing him in this universe. Not origin stories in how he got his power. But we get a lot of that. And I thought that was actually well done. I thought that was well done. Those scenes though, there's some amazing fight scenes towards the end of this movie.
Yeah, and
it's
even
amazing.
In the middle, Black Adam vs. Hawkman is great.
Dr. Fate, oh my God.
There's some great fights in here, and their action concepts of DC characters are really good. And I will say, to what Matt says here, is one thing that Black Adam does do very effectively is by starting kind of in the middle of this character coming back in this universe, they're able to kind of deftly move the universe forward, and Black Adam does the best job of any DC movie of bringing all the parts together.
Yeah.
Of saying all the Snyderverse stuff, all the Gunverse stuff, it's all one playground. We're not going to loosely allude to things or do that half gray, does it all exist together stuff. No, it all happened. They all exist. All these characters are in the same sandbox, and now there's Black Adam and the JSA.
Yeah.
And so they do that very well in this movie to kind of bring the universe together and then put Black Adam in the middle of it as it's already, as Matt said, happening.